What's up guys, Readiness Reviews here with you again, and today we'll be discussing the post-war German Walther P.38 pistol that has been so popular over the past year. These are aluminum frame pistols made after World War II for police and military use. And now that I've had this one in my collection for about a year, I think it's finally time for a deep dive review on the post-war P.38. Before we get into it, don't forget to thumbs up the video to help it out with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future military surplus firearms content, and let me know what you think about these post-war aluminum P.38s down in the comments. Before getting our P.38 out to the range, the first course of action is going to be to give this thing a thorough cleaning because out of the box it was covered in preservative grease. With these aluminum frame examples, it's also important to do a thorough inspection before shooting for safety reasons because these pistols have been known to have durability issues. So let's move it over to the desk for inspection and cleaning. So in the unboxing of our post-war P.38, I did wipe a little bit of the cosmoline that was packed in off of it, but the inside of this thing is thoroughly coated with it. So if we're going to get it out to the range, we have to give it a quick cleaning. So let's disassemble it. Magazine out. Even the magazine has cosmoline on it. So let's pull that slide back, rotate our takedown lever, slide forward, drop the hammer, and everything comes right off. The barrel and the slide separate, and there's our three main components of the pistol. So you can see there we do have a pretty good buildup of cosmoline. We got a whole lot of gunk there near the firing pin. This pistol could probably use a full complete disassembly and deep cleaning, but to be honest, all that I'm trying to do is get it ready for the range to make sure that it can send 9 mils in a safe fashion. One of the cool features of the P.38 is its double recoil springs. One of the components of these firearms that you have to make sure is in good condition is your locking block. This little tilting part here is what keeps the firearm locked, so we do want to pull that off, clean all in there, but make sure that this is a sound metal piece with no cracks. This one does look like it's in perfect shape. For your typical field strip cleaning, you would not take the grips off, but since we are dealing with a little bit more gunk than normal, I will have a look under these grips. Even that screw head is completely filled with cosmoline. The right side grip comes right off. Yeah, there's a little cosmoline under there. And the left side grip, just a little bit, but not too bad. That will give me an opportunity to get at more of the mechanical parts of the fire control group here though. So we all know there are an absolute ton of ways to tackle cosmoline. If this pistol really had it glooped on super thick, I would use a heat gun to loosen things up. In the case of my particular example, there's a lot of it, but at no point is it super thick. So we're just gonna scrub it away with a little bit of solvent and a toothbrush. Should be quick and easy. Traditionally, I use Hoppy's number 9, but recently Otis Technologies sent me a package with some Shooter's Choice MC7 bore cleaner. So I figured this would be a good video to put that to the test and see if that bore cleaner can dissolve some cosmoline. Have my universal cleaning device here, a plain old toothbrush, and I guess we'll start with our barrel. Soak that toothbrush in bore cleaner and get to scrubbing. As long as this Shooter's Choice MC7 can dissolve cosmoline, this should go pretty quick. The cosmoline is not really globbed on. It's just a thin, protective layer doing exactly what it was put there to do, protect the firearm during storage. Get all those nooks and crannies the best I can. Make sure I get the chamber. Cosmoline is a bore obstruction. Having significant amounts of it in the barrel can be extremely dangerous, so it's important to make sure that's completely cleaned out. Now that we've given it our toothbrush scrub, we'll just go in and wipe everything down, and hopefully all that cosmoline comes off with the excess bore cleaner. Now that barrel is looking good. I'm gonna very quickly run a cotton swab through the bore just to make sure any debris is removed. As a reminder, whenever cleaning a bore, you want to go at it from the chamber end if possible, because causing damage to your muzzle can greatly affect the firearm's accuracy. Yeah, buddy. Check that bore out. It looks outstanding. Shiny, not a pit to speak of. The crown might not be the prettiest, but I think this P.38 is going to be a very accurate shooter. Still a little bit of bore cleaner on our napkin here, so use that to clean off our grip screw. Now time to get down into the slide. Again, this slide probably needs to be taken all the way down to really make sure every individual part of it is clean, but I think I'm going to do that after shooting. I simply don't have time. Range day is scheduled for tomorrow, and I got to get this gun ready. Make sure we get under the safety there. Back part of the firing pin. Got to pay close attention to the bolt head here and the front part of the firing pin. That was a particularly dirty part of the firearm. All in all, that went pretty fast. Let's wipe up the excess here. There's a lot of areas in there that you just can't get to without a complete disassembly, but I'd say that looks pretty good for a simple trip to the range. That board cleaner is really burning all the little micro cuts on my fingers. Somebody in the comments is gonna be like, you should be wearing gloves. Ain't nobody got time for that. And then we'll do the same here with the frame. Would you guys be afraid to put an aluminum framed P38 into an ultrasonic? With a gun like this one, I certainly feel more comfortable with a quick hand scrubbing, personally. Wiping everything off. I do think we need to get this magazine, because as we can see there, we got a big glob. Can't say I've ever taken down a P38 magazine before, but I can't imagine it's too difficult. Looks to be a little plunger here, and a floor plate that supposedly slides off. Standard magazine takedown. Floor plate, little plunger, spring, and our gunked up follower. Give the outside a good scrub, give the inside a good scrub, and then I'll run our paper towel all the way through it to make sure all the excess is cleaned up. This blued magazine is certainly something that you could stick in the ultrasonic if you wanted to. Look at that little dent. Sure hope that doesn't affect reliability at all. The spring's not too terribly dirty. Whenever I'm cleaning a spring for a firearm, what I actually like to do is take my cloth here that's covered in product and work it all the way through the spring. I do this on rifles, pistols, everything. For the most part, this P38 has been cleansed. I do want to protect things a little bit as we're putting it back together, so I will be trying out an Otis Technologies product, the 085 CLP. I'm gonna put a little squirt of this wherever I think it may be needed, and we are getting this old bird back together. P38 can be a little finicky because there's so many pieces that move up and down in the slide. Pull our slide back, rotate our lever, and that is a reassembled P38. And with the magazine back together, I think we're ready for the range. Where did I hit that? Are you going under it? We were shooting low. So I'm aiming right here, and it has to be hitting under it. That's the only explanation. Straight out of the gate, one thing I can say about these particular pistols is that they are extremely reliable. At least my example has been. At this point, we've had several separate range trips with this pistol, and never once have we experienced a malfunction. So she shoots reliably, but what about accuracy? Well, as a whole, the P38 has never really had a reputation for being the most accurate handgun in the world anyway. They are a very competent service arm, and plenty accurate enough for duty use. However, the front sight on these pistols can be a big issue. That sight blade is extremely tall, and a really tall sight leads to a firearm shooting really low, and that's the issue that my example has. And when I say it's shooting low, I mean it's shooting really low. So on my first round here, I was aiming dead center, and you can see it hit at the very bottom of the paper there. So I readjusted my hold to the very top of the circle, which moved our point of impact up a good deal here, but even aiming about 3 or 4 inches high at this about 7-yard distance, we're easily still shooting 4+ inches low. So with a dead on hold, it looks like my pistol is shooting at least 8 inches low, and it's consistently to the left. The good news is that issue of shooting low should be one that you can correct fairly easily. The front sight is the culprit, and from the very beginning of the P38, Walther produced front sights in various different sizes to achieve your desired elevation. I happen to get a little bit unlucky with my example because my front sight blade is a size 0, which is the absolute tallest size available. The sight numbers start at 0 and move up from there. The higher the number, the shorter the sight, and so this size 0 is super tall. So simply replacing my tall sight with a shorter sight should greatly affect that point of impact, but apparently these handguns were originally zeroed for 124 grain ammunition, and from what I've read, 124 grain ammo will give you a more true point of impact. So if you're experiencing a similar issue of your pistol shooting really high, you might want to give 124 grain bullets a try before you invest the money for a new front sight. So far, I have only shot 115 grain loads out of my pistol because that's the only 9mm loading that I store. I definitely plan on investing in some 124 grains to try them out myself, but that leads me into my next talking point on these post-war aluminum frame pistols. These handguns do have questionable durability. For the most part, you shouldn't experience any issues, as long as you're sticking to standard pressure 9mm loadings, but you most certainly do not even want to think about putting plus P loads through these handguns, and it's even recommended to stay away from projectiles any heavier than 124 grains because these aluminum frames are prone to cracking. While we're discussing durability, I did want to mention that the decocker safety that these pistols have is also prone to breakage, so it's not at all uncommon to run across a post-war P38 with a broken decocking mechanism. This specific batch, imported by Century Arms, which has been available on the Milsurp market over the past year, also seems to uniquely have trigger guard damage. Many of the examples that I've observed have had a very worn down side on the aluminum trigger guard, almost as if they had been drug against concrete or cement. I'm guessing that's a form of holster wear, since so many of the pistols have it, but there really is a significant amount of metal missing from the trigger guard. Since we just discussed the trigger guard, I suppose I will mention the trigger itself. For a surplus handgun, the trigger on these is actually pretty decent. The double action is stiff, but smooth, and not nearly as heavy as some that I've experienced. The single action has a short take-up and a crisp release, making for a trigger that is overall quite good and honestly a little bit surprising. In my unboxing video of this handgun, which I will link right up here if you want to check out, I posed the question of why this is a P38 and not a P1, and what is the difference between the two? Well, post-World War II, the P38 went back into production in Germany in the late 1950s, and those P38s had aluminum frames. Those early production P38s were meant for both military and police use, but in 1963, the German army, the Bundeswehr, officially accepted the aluminum frame P38 as their standard service arm with the designation P1. P1s were produced for the German military through the 1960s and heavily through the 1970s. Even though Walther was producing the new P1 for the military, they continued production of P38s, and from what I was able to dig up, the P38 was used alongside the P1 in military service, but for the most part, pistols marked P38 were specifically for the police and commercial market. So these are a military handgun, but there's a good chance that this specific batch are surplus police guns. There are two major styles of aluminum frame P38s. This most recent batch seems to be the thinner style, which was the earlier design. As the service life of this pistol progressed, they underwent several changes to improve durability. In 1967, they replaced the thin slide version with a thicker slide version to improve durability. So any P1 pistol dated 1967 or later should have that updated thicker slide and be an overall safer pistol to shoot if you're putting a lot of rounds through it. They must have been plenty safe because they remained in Bundeswehr service all the way until the 1990s. The going rate on these handguns has been about 550, although I have seen them as low as about 450. And although they do have questionable durability, I definitely think this handgun was worth the investment. It is a super fun, reliable shooter, chambered in 9mm, so it's cheap to shoot, and although post-World War II, they still have a really interesting history. Unfortunately, at this point, we're probably at the tail end of these pistols being available in the surplus market. There are far fewer C&R retailers offering them now than there were this time last year, and one day in the future they will only be available on the collector market. And just like every other firearm I've ever talked about here on the channel, once they're on the collector market only, the prices skyrocket. So I don't regret picking this one up at all. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future military surplus firearms content, both rifles and pistols. If you picked up one of these post-war P38s, let me know what your experience has been down in the comments, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See you then. Peace.